What if your most cherished virtue, non-violence, is actually a great sin? The Gita has a shocking answer. Rediscovering Gita for the Modern World. By Shrikant Soman. Based on Essays on Gita by Sri Aurobindo. Chapter 7 continued. The Creed of the Aryan Fighter. Continued from the previous episode 62. Beyond Life and Death, the True Meaning of Immortality. Current episode 63. Beyond Truth, Justifying Action Through Righteous Battle. Duty as a Path to Self-Development, the Concept of Svadharma. The Kshatriya's True Happiness, the Glory of Dharma. Key Takeaways. Truth is not enough for action. Arjuna accepts the philosophical truth of the soul's immortality, but still questions how it justifies the terrible act of war, revealing that intellectual understanding alone does not lead to action. The necessity of Svadharma. Krishna explains that the justification for Arjuna's action lies in his Svadharma, the law of his being and his social duty as a Kshatriya. The world is a field for both internal and external progress. Life is a heroic struggle. Our spiritual progress is not a serene journey, but one of heroic struggle, and the clash of opposing forces, which for a warrior, culminates in the physical act of righteous battle. The sin of non-action. In a conflict of right versus wrong, abstention from battle is a sin for a champion of righteousness. A warrior must not abandon their duty for fear, weakness, or pity for the oppressor. Glory over comfort. For a Kshatriya, true happiness and glory are not found in peaceful domestic life, but in the quest for a righteous cause. To refuse a righteous battle is to abandon his virtue and incur disgrace, which is a fate worse than death. Main passage. Having explained this real truth behind the apparent truth of our existence, the teacher appeals to Arjuna, O son of Bharata, to put away this vain sorrow and shrinking and fight. But Arjuna is still not convinced, accepted that what Krishna says is the real truth. But where does it lead to? Arjuna accepts that this high and great knowledge, this strenuous self-discipline of the mind and soul, will enable us to rise beyond the clamor of the emotions and the cheat of the senses to true self-knowledge. It may well cure us of the fear of death and the sorrow for the dead. It may well show us that those whom we speak of as dead are not dead at all. It may convince us that those who are dead are not to be sorrowed for, since they have only gone beyond. It may well teach us to look undisturbed upon the most terrible assaults of life. It may persuade us to look upon the death of the body as a trifle. It may exalt us to the conception of all life's circumstances as a manifestation of the One and as a means for our souls to raise themselves as the immortal spirit. Arjuna is ready to accept all these arguments of Krishna. He says that the explanations given by Krishna, though they may contain the truth, do not answer a very specific question from Arjuna. How to justify the action demanded of Arjuna and the slaughter of Kurukshetra. Krishna patiently answers that this is the action required of Arjuna in the path he has to travel. It has come inevitably in the performance of the function demanded of him by his Svadharma, his social duty, the law of his life, and the law of his being. This world, this manifestation of the self in the material universe, is not just a cycle of inner development. It is also a field in which the external circumstances of life have to be accepted as an environment and an occasion for that development. It is a world of mutual help and struggle. Our progress is not through a serene and peaceful gliding with easy joys and comforts. Here, every step has to be gained by heroic effort and through a clash of opposing forces. This struggle is taken to the most physical level in the act of war, and the people who do this are Kshatriyas, the mighty men. Their nature is composed of war, force, nobility, and courage. Their virtue and their duty is in protection of the right, and an unflinching acceptance of the battle as a fact of life. There is a continuous struggle between right and wrong, justice and injustice, the force that protects and the force that violates and oppresses. When this struggle comes to a flashpoint on the physical level, the work gets violent and terrible. At this time, the champion and torchbearer of the right must not shake and tremble. He must not abandon his followers or fellow fighters. He should not betray his cause and leave the standard of right and justice to trail in the dust. He should not allow it to be trampled into mire by the blood-stained feet of the oppressor. He should not allow this to happen because of a weak pity for the violent and cruel and a physical horror of the vastness of the destruction decreed. His virtue and his duty lie in battle and not in abstention from battle. It is not slaughter, but non-slaying is a sin in this situation. At this point, the teacher adopts a different strategy. He turns aside for a moment and gives another answer to the cry of Arjuna over the sorrow of the death of relatives. The sorrow which will empty his life of the causes and objects of living. Krishna now takes up the question as to what is the true object of the Kshatriya's life and his true happiness. It is certainly not the self-pleasing and domestic happiness. It is not a life of comfort and peaceful joy with friends and relatives. His true object of life is to battle for the right. His greatest happiness lies in the quest to find a cause for which he can lay down his life, or by victory win the crown and glory of the hero's existence. There is no greater good for the Kshatriya than righteous battle. When such a battle comes to them of itself like the open gate of heaven, happy are the Kshatriyas then. If thou dost not this battle for the right, then hast thou abandoned thy duty and virtue, and thy glory, and sin shall be thy portion. Such a refusal will incur disgrace, and the blame of fear and weakness, and the loss of his honor. Loss of honor, his fame, his noble station among the mighty men, the men of courage and power, is a worst grief for a Kshatriya. Such a life for him is worse than death.